Welcome everyone. Very happy today that we see an overview of Xinyu's fantastic work that she has been doing over the last few years. As you might imagine, she is now approaching rapidly her Viva, which should take place sometime in July, and has just recently submitted in a massive sprint on the finishing line, working endless hours and submitting under enormous pressure. So kudos for that. It is with pride to see that a rich body of work has emerged around the creation of artificial intelligences, of embodied artificial intelligences, and new approaches on how to create them, how to generate holographic AIs, as we call them. And Xinyu has been looking into this for a couple of years now and came over with me from Oxford Brookes, the Technical University of Oxford, where she started with her PhD a while back. Yeah, looking into new models of capture, of design, of animation, but then also going further and investigating empirically how this influences trust, how a new inventory of, for example, animation gestures could be fitted that supports the further development of such guides by your side that can beam a tutor, teacher, educator into the room with you to show you around and hold your hand where you need it. But yeah, without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Xinyu, and we're all very excited to see kind of the final results of what you have been working on for quite a while.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So, hi everyone. I'm Xinyu Huang. So I'm going to talk about development of human-computer interaction for holographic AIs. So since this presentation includes 4 items, I think it's quite a lot today to talk about. So I will quickly introduce the backgrounds in the first and second ones. So in the past decades, augmented reality or mixed reality agents have developed fast, but it's also difficult to determine what these virtual agents are and why the virtual agents should be displayed by AR technology. So it firstly defines embodied virtual agents in AR and then explores how to create one based on a general framework. Besides, it also developed key instructional gestures. And also, in order to explore a sense of trust, an experiment examines children's trust towards an educational virtual agent in AR to observe what factors influence the sense of trust. To understand embodied virtual agents in AR, we conducted a systematic literature review based on Prisma methodology. All studies that meet the selection criteria were published between 2009 and 2022. The selection criteria for the study was that they clearly states the visible virtual agents in AR. As a result, 321 studies were collected by Hazing's published or parish software, and 28 studies that did not specifically focus on AR technology that were excluded, and 199 studies were excluded for not using or investigating visible 3D agents in AR. They are focusing on voice assistants, AR animation, AR shopping systems, or AR learning systems. And finally, we got 49 papers. And there are 31 studies that defines the holographic AIs visual representation that is based on 3D computer-generated graphics, sharing the same space with the user. And some definitions reflect specific interactive abilities, such as environmental understanding, real object recognition, translation, verb communication, AR or VR remote collaboration, or educational training. And some studies explained an interactive environment by using some words like in the physical or real space, interact with the real world, share the physical space, or integrate into a virtual or physical space. So we defined this kind of visible virtual agents as holographic artificial intelligence, which is an anthropomorphic user interface projected into the real world, which interacts with and responds to both its physical and virtual surroundings. As we can see from this picture, holographic AIs with realistic human shapes appearance are widely used, and these papers investigate how degree of realism, size, and the presence of the holographic AI can affect user experience. And most of studies indicate that holographic AI have all mentioned that the importance of behaviors, especially gestures count for the most, such as a hand wave, thumbs up, pointing or writing, standing and walking are also most popular basic animation, and smiling is also very frequently used for the holographic AIs to show their emotions, and lip syncing animations depends on whether the holographic AI can talk. So 16 papers also focus on intelligence, such as physical object recognition and spatial understanding, natural language processing, intelligent tutor systems, AI projection, AI plugin developer, etc., to develop holographic AIs. And conviviality refers to the social but purposive ability of individuals to interact with others, typically targeted to satisfying users' needs. In terms of human-computer interaction, senses can be seen as corresponding to the human senses. For example, a camera can be considered as sight, and a microphone can be considered hearing. So sensory modalities of holographic AI refer to a single or multiple input or output pathways, such as gesture recognition, natural language processing, and facial recognition. The total of 49 studies were reviewed, showing that the holographic AI involve 4 major dimensions that can be integrated into a new framework called PICS. Persona identifies a specific human being and its manifestation of the holographic AI by way of its body and behavior. The intelligence of holographic AI refers to its ability, such as computer vision, spatial awareness, natural language processing, or responsiveness. And the conviviality is defined as the user's perception of social interaction and the level of satisfaction with a holographic AI. And senses enable a holographic AI to perceive and react to the user and undergo context changes by different ability. After that, after we understand what is holographic AI and its new framework, PICS, a holographic AI was created by using 3D scanning, and it firstly scanned the head and body for an actor to ensure the quality and the details of 3D scan models. And in order to ensure the 3D scan model can be animated, the filed meshes and textures should be cleaned. So this process called reconstruction. Then a tool of blend shape in 3D construction software Maya was used for creating emotions and lip sync. And motion capture technology was used for animations. Then again, it was very necessary to clean animation data to get smooth behavior. And this picture shows a holographic AI we created that can provide professional training exercises. And a female sports student and a male sports student helped me to record animations using Vicon cameras. And this considers the capture of all exercise motions. In terms of intelligence, IBM Watson is a cognitive system that is able to simulate human sounds and is capable of decision making and answering questions using natural language, so that it can capture keywords and automatically select corresponding response. And also it provides a chatbot service which can hold users keyword and the holographic AI's answers in a question response dialogue tree. For example, if a user says, I want to work out, the keywords group containing workout or exercise is activated, recognizing the user's intent. If it has been featured in the current active nodes of a dialogue tree, the activate node then helps find a corresponding output. And the Unity engine builds real-time 3D projects for AI platforms and integrates with IBM Watson services using the Watson SDK to perform the communicative and animate the holographic AI. Spatial awareness is also one of the key features of AI, as it enables the holographic AI to recognize physical surroundings and objects. The holographic AI is able to detect and follow the user positions if follow player switches on. And the aim of spatial mapping is to create service for placement of holographic AIs, enabling users to put virtual objects in their places. The holographic AI in these pictures can recognize the wall and floor by way of spatial mapping. And then the relationship between the data of the camera and that of a known object can be calculate so that it can recognize the distance, social distance between users and holographic AIs. According to the systematic literature review of holographic AIs, we found that fewer studies discussed gestures, particularly in relation to intelligent tutor system. So in order to get instructional gestures, this experiment tasked the participants with 3 tasks. One focused on navigation, one on assembling, and precision test. This project utilized Rococo suite and cameras to collect data, and the Rococo suite has 19 sensors within a suite to generate animations. To be more specific, there were 2 participants in one group. One is to be a trainer and the other one is to be a trainee. The trainer always need to wear AR glasses, and in this project, we use HoloLens so that the trainer can see holograms and will rococo suit to guide the trainee to build something so that we can get the trainer's movements. The first task is navigation task for the trainer is to navigate the trainee using gestures and words so that the later stand right where the hologram is mimicking the hologram's body and positions as closely as possible. And the right pictures each task has 4 different difficulty levels, and warm-up trial means that the trainer cannot talk to the trainee, and other 3 trials that allows trainers to talk with trainees. In the second task, the trainee has to assemble a couple fold, and again, the trainer wears the rococo suit for data collection and HoloLens. So they can see a hologram of the couple fold, and the task for the trainer is to instruct the trainee to assemble the couple fold. In the final task is precision task. The participants acting as trainer wears the suit and HoloLens and instructs the trainee on assembling the right patterns in Puzzle T. This experiment was conducted with 22 participants, including 4 females and 18 males, aged between 18 to 64. The trainer group had 3 females and 8 males, so there were 11 groups to finish all 3 tasks with 4 different difficulty levels. According to the previous studies, we know there are 6 types of representational gestures, including dactic, iconic, metaphoric, beat, emblematic, cohesive gestures. And the a dactic gesture is pointing gestures is to point at a location, a position, or an object. And iconic can show a physical objects. It can show a physical object's features, or it can represent spatial relationship between 2 or more references. For example, if you want to describe a vase shape, you can do a gesture like that. And metaphoric gesture is to describe metaphoric concept. For example, point to the left side can mean the past time, and pointing to the right side may refer to the future time. And emblematic gestures is widely common. It's kind of cultural gestures, such as OK gesture. Some up means good, or some down means bad. Beat is pragmatic gestures that emphasize the flow of speech. For example, hand or index finger goes up and down during speech. And cohesive gesture is a repeated gesture. It can be used to cohere with the interrupted narrative by creating the same gesture in the original position. And after data collection, this project utilized NVivo to analyze the video recordings by coding notes based on the types of gestures. For example, in this picture, in the second and third images, the trainer described the shape of a cube that can be built using panels, and his hands change orientation to show the value of the box. So this represents one occurrence of the iconic gesture, coded as the first note. And subsequently, in the fifth and fifth images, the trainer uses a pointing gesture to indicate the orientation of the panel with a window, which corresponds to the second node of the gesture. And this picture shows a way of coding gestures and distribution of gestures in the assembling task of one of the group. And empty places indicate period during which there are no instructional gestures, or when the trainer was waiting for the trainee to finish the subtask as per the relevant instruction. After coding gestures, then a second rater coded all types of representational gestures, and due to in vivo calculation of segment length, the time spans selected by the two coders different. So both raters compared selected nodes in each fragment and made sure the nodes were the same, but didn't consider the node's duration. And the final kappa values for different types of gestures, all over 0.7. In terms of there are some examples of types of gestures that exist in this experiment. For example, in terms of pointing gestures, the trainer used index fingers to point a specific object or and position, and the palm point the object direction. The trainer also used the two hands to describe a roof's shape in the assembling text, which is an iconic gesture, and the thumb and index fingers can explain whether an object is small, and the trainer could create far distance between left and side of hands to indicate big triangle or stress big. In the hard level of the assembling test, the couple-fold house can be divided into different parts. The trainer did demonstrate how the parts of house are placed. For example, in this picture, displays the trainer indicating how base cubes should be positioned and connecting by putting down the grasping hand gestures. In terms of metaphorical gesture, the hand put down gesture means that the trainee's knee required bending in the navigation test. If the trainer suspends instruction, he or she points in the index finger upward when asking for a few seconds to double check the hologram. The emblematic gesture in this experiment includes thumb up, waving index finger, crossed arms, palm forward, counting finger and palm movement. For example, the crossed arms or waving index finger gestures indicate that the trainee is failing to follow the instructions correctly. And palm facing forward gesture is used to ask the trainee to stop. And there are two other gestures that found in this project. Is mimicking and transformational gestures. For example, most of gestures simulate the hologram posture in the navigation test, although the trainer cannot fully replicate the same movements as a hologram. The transformational gesture is used to guide the trainee to multiply objects, such as flipping and rotation. For example, in the precision test, the trainer's palm flips to instruct the trainee that the square needs to be turned over, and rotating wrist gestures indicates that the square needs to be rotated. And this type just means how to multiply the object itself and can represent by how many degrees something needs to be rotated. Then it calculates which gesture frequently used. In total, we got 132 videos containing over 2,300 notes of the representational gesture group. The first table shows that the average and sum of each gestures generated during the first task, since mimicking gesture post gestures are continuous gesture that the trainers hold hands or arms for a long period of time. So difficulty doesn't affect the number of mimicking gestures. The pointing gestures were used the most in the second test. And gesture pointing at a position and an object had 247 and 148 notes. Since in this test, the trainer needs to direct the trainee's attention to the exact points for positioning the couple fold, all trainers used iconic gestures that you have seen the picture to describe the triangle roofs, and some also placed their palms to describe flat rooms. And interesting, in this section, we found under co-speech gesture conditions, some trainers briefly describe the couple folds information in advance. For example, our trainers explained a couple fold shape and their spatial positions between different parts of couple fold before instruction, and at the same time, trainees just listening to instruction and they didn't note assembling panels. Therefore, there are two situations per pre-instruction and non-pre-instruction. And there are 16 videos that show some trainers provide pre-instruction and 17 of them did not. It was found that the mean value of general notes were 18.5 in the non-pre-instruction situation and 15.5 notes in pre-instruction situation. So the pre-instructional situation is characterized by lower gesture generation as evidenced by a negative correlation coefficient. Besides, the time duration appears to have been negatively affected by the pre-instructional situation. So if the trainer provides pre-instruction in advance, they would provide less gestures when they guide the trainee. And in the precision test, the trainers prefer use their palms move forward or downward to represent pointing in a particular direction for when a panel needs to be translated vertically or horizontally. The transformational gesture was also used frequently in this task, especially rotation, but the hands were shaped differently. And again, those who provide pre-instruction generate the few gestures, but direct instruction produced 3 or 4 more gestures, and they spend more time to finish this task. Therefore, we got pointing is the most frequently used, and the emblematic gestures was the second most frequently used, particularly thumbs up. However, over 75% of videos show should generate sum up in speechless conditions, even though the sum up gesture is not instructional. The beat gesture in these experiments can help the trainer to organize their speech and logical thoughts. And the duration of this gesture tends not to be long, maybe just a few seconds. And when the hologram was more complicated, the trainer needs to spend more time in observing and figuratively cutting into different blocks. And in terms of word frequency, the word one was the most frequently used, but it only appeared 5 times when the gesture with the gesture. But the word side was used often and accompanied by pointing or beat gestures to stress the object's position or direction, and this can also match the frequency of the gestures. After that, different key instructional gestures and motions were used in holographic AI, such as pointing, rotation, iconic, and sum up. And the holographic AI's cognitive ability and intelligence level can be represented by the gestures. Although natural language processing is an important interactive approach, but the gesture generation can be an aiding system that enhances the holographic AI's persona and to help people to understand easily. The other experiment is to explore children's sense of trust. The holograph AI guides children how to identify cube and cubed. And this video is an example how the holograph AI teaches children. Oops, sorry.
Don't mind. We still don't hear your sound, so you're not sharing it with your screen share. But if you just explain what people would hear, I think that would be useful.
Oh, okay. So when the Sarah, this holographic AI, when the user say, I want to learn 3D shapes, the holographic AI says, okay, would you like to learn about 3D shapes? Do you understand what 3D is? And if the user says yes, and then the holograph says, okay, would you like to study what is cube? And then if the user says yes, and the holographic AI will guide the users to see the cube and count how many faces it has, how many vertices it has, and how many edges it has. If the users cannot correctly answer the questions, the holographic AI will help them to correct the answers and explain why the reasons. But before this experiment, we found that there does not appear to exist a validated tool for measuring a user trust in holographic AIs. Therefore, it firstly takes us a step by proposing a new scale for measuring trust in this context based on the Likert scaling methodology. Then we found that there are 5 dimensions of trust towards holographic AIs, including competence, integrity, benevolence, compassion, and relationship. Then the values of answers to questions indicate the degree of agreement from strongly agree to strongly disagree, and undecided can equal 3. For open-ended questions, we are aided to investigate children's feedback regarding advantages and shortcomings of holographic AIs, and we also translate the language to a more child-friendly version. This experiment recruited 47 children in total from Oxford's University Science Bazaar 2023. Their ages range from 5 to 13. Each child needs to fill out a demographic survey, including whether they used AR and virtual agents before. And out of the 47 participants, only 15 had experience in using AR, and 10 children have had experience in using virtual agents, including voice assistants. After data collection, each value of dimension is a weight based on the number of questions in each dimension for measuring the sum scores of trust and their correlation values. In here, we found that the mean value of competence and benevolence are higher. Then we calculate a correlation among the dimensions and 11 factors and participants' demographic characteristics were investigated. It's found that the dimensions of competence, integrity, compassion share negative correlations with the children's age and gender. These dimensions may also be affected by children's social experience, and it could be suggested that subjective feelings described with age, perhaps because older children may have more experience of as well as better cognitive ability to interact with holographic AIs. This picture shows the correlation value and its level of significance for each pair of questions. Competence was found to be importantly correlated with integrity, compassion, and relationship. Relationship was found to correlate with dimensions of benevolence, compassion, and integrity, but relationship and benevolence share stronger positive correlation with trust compared to the others. In total, the mean value for competence and benevolence were higher than those of the other dimensions, but the correlation between trust and benevolence was found to be importantly positive. Out of the 47 returned questions, 5 were incomplete. Participants neither provide feedback nor only answer the first question. So this data deleted. To the first question, would you like to share your story or life with Sarah? 14 participants answers yes, in which 11 given reasons. And to the second question regarding whether Sarah can keep secrets, 21 answers yes and 70 said no. There are 20 participants who believed that the Sarah can keep secrets, of which 9 participants had no experience in both AR and virtual agents, and 3 has previously used AR and virtual agents. And after interaction, a boy hoped that the holographic AI could give him a hug or hold his hand or give me 5. So perceived benevolence is found to be significantly related to the dimension of compassion and therefore yield a beneficial relationship with the children. And so this emotional support also can be represented by the holographic AI gestures, not just verbal communication. According to the PICS framework, competence can correspond to intelligence, which can influence the degree of perceived integrity, compassion, and the holographic AI's intention in aspect of benevolence. But the value of correlation between competence and trust in this experiment was below 0.5. For children, emotional support may be more important, especially for those who are 5 to 9 years old, and older children are more likely to recognize that a holographic AI is not real, so that it cannot generate a real feeling between AI and user. And besides, children may prefer to interact with a character with whom they are familiar, which has enough story, backgrounds, and personality to support interaction. And this requirement may be particularly important with long-term utilization. So based on the children's feedback and suggestions, 6 recommendations for improving children's sense of trust towards holographic AIs are proposed. As I said before, the holographic AI should have its own characters, background before interaction in order to improve intention and motivation. However, this doesn't mean the holographic AI should always talk, because a boy said if a holographic AI should talk too much, they may easily lie to me. So the interaction should take the form of story sharing to enhance engagement. And secondly, in the interactive context should pay attention to emotional responsiveness, especially benevolence. And a positive relationship depends on significant intent on compassion. So in order for it to exhibit empathy and consistent of behavior and speech, the holographic AI should take the perspective of children into account. And in terms of teaching context, explanations for dealing with learning problems is important in intelligent tutor systems. So the holographic AI not only should provide basic information, but also reasoning and solution. And speaking and animation are the main interactive approaches. The personal survey provided from the holographic AI should accurately capture user voice. And animation should be consistent with the holographic AI's intention to express emotional space. Yeah. That's all. Thank you so much for listening.